welcome to PL Healthy Lifestyles. I'm your host Yadevinder with our co-host, Mr. Dr. Taj Bedi.
Hi, I'm Dr. Taj Bedi. I'm a clinical psychologist and a certified fitness personal trainer in the city of Brampton.
Perfect. And so before we start into this week's episode, we want to just acknowledge we had some questions from last week's episode. So we want to just really quickly kind of go into those and answer, and just want to thank you for tuning in and sending in your questions. So I think the two things that people wanted to really talk about was a lot of questions we had were on supplements, and the other part was the HIIT training. So maybe let's start with the supplements and go from there.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all our viewers that have been tuning in from Canada, United States, Mexico, and Latin America that are Spanish speaking. We really appreciate your feedback. Gracias a todos que están viendo nuestro programa de Canadá, Estados Unidos, México y Latinoamérica. Y gracias por sus preguntas de fitness, gimnasio y nutrición.
Fantastic. So maybe you can kind of touch base with some of the questions that we got for supplements, and let's start with the supplement side.
Yes. Well, basically, one of the questions was regarding omega-369.
Okay.
And which one is most important, if all of them should be taken. And 3 is the most important.
Right.
And 6 would be next in line, and 9 would be the least.
Right.
But I've lately been taking a combination of all 3.
Okay.
So I'm told that 6 and 9 are toxic if you take them on their own.
Definitely. Well, so it's I think some of the research that we were doing leading up to this was that 6 is omega-3 is something that the body can't produce, so we have to get that through a diet. And omega-6 is something where the body can produce, but we still want to be ingesting it in a balance and in ratios with omega-3. And 9 is something that the body does produce, but in high dosages, 9 can be toxic, and same with 6.
Yes.
So what we're talking about really is we want to really focus on omega-3, and taking the omega-369 is obviously it's beneficial in the sense that the ratio has been put together from the manufacturer.
Yes.
And so we know that it should be in safe balances. And again, once again, we want to preface that you should be speaking with your doctor, obviously your medical practitioner, to make sure that you're in a position to be able to do that. So omega-3, so there's various kinds of omega-3. One of the best sources right now is with the krill, because krill is a concentrated form of omega-3. There's very little pollution that actually is hitting the actual that source, and so it's a much cleaner source of omega-3, and it's probably one of the most abundant and rich, and probably the most one of the most environmentally harvestable, sustainable form of omega-3 that we can get.
Yes, of course, krill oil is gaining a lot of popularity in the nutrition area, and it's something that people can pursue taking.
Definitely. And so so that's our part with the omega-3. So the next part I think we had some questions on was HIIT training.
Yes.
Maybe you can elaborate what is HIIT training. It's obviously has nothing to do with really punching and like hitting people.
Well, I could.
But so maybe you can elaborate. What is HIIT training?
HIIT training is high intensity interval training, abbreviated HIIT. Now, interval training is when you create basically intervals in cardiorespiratory training, whether you're doing it on a treadmill, an elliptical trainer, a bicycle, running outside,
Right.
any type, the step machine.
Okay.
When you do intervals, is meaning that you interval between doing a fast pace
Right.
and a slower pace training.
Okay.
Now, researchers have found that HIIT training is very good for burning fat.
Okay.
And there are different intervals they can use. A common one is 30 seconds of fast training, getting your heart rate real high,
Right.
and then going to 70 to 80% of your maximum heart rate reserve. Now, heart rate depends on your age.
Okay.
The maximum heart rate that you should be doing is 220 minus your age. So if you're if you're 25 years old,
Right.
you subtract 25 from the 220.
Right.
and it would be 195
Right.
beats per minute.
Right. Okay.
So it's very important to follow this. Now, I'm certified through the National Academy of Sports Medicine in the United States, which is worldwide. But this is a general guideline that is given, is this is your max heart rate potential.
Right. Okay.
So
Okay.
HIIT training, when you basically train between high intensity to medium low or medium high, it puts your fat burning zone in an area where you will burn more globules of fat than if you would just run hard for a really high heart rate,
Okay.
or if you're just walking.
Right.
So HIIT training is very beneficial, and
Okay.
it's gaining a lot of
Now,
popularity.
since you mentioned running and walking, is this something that if someone is not in a gym, as an example, that they could go for a walk around the block and then just do like wind sprints
Sure.
down the road or wherever it is?
Right, on a track.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So would that be considered HIIT?
That would be considered HIIT as long as you look at your heart rate. And the best way to do it, if you don't have any monitor machine, you could just take your pulse
Right, take your
at your
pulse.
neck or at your wrist
Not your wrist, yeah.
and count how many beats are beating
Right.
in 10 seconds, and then times it by 6, because
Right.
then you'll get it beats per
Per
minute.
minute, right. Okay.
But it's best to get a Fitbit,
Right.
use some type of watch to get a more accurate
Right.
reading
Okay.
of your heart rate.
Right.
I recommend Fitbits. They're so inexpensive these
Right,
days too.
right.
You can get them anywhere.
Definitely. That's that's one of the things that we always want to focus on is using technology
Yes.
to really kind of leap forward on our health and our fitness journey. And so Fitbit is one of those tools that really helps to simplify and really track, which is the whole point of trying to get into the fitness model. You want to be able to track what you're doing, because then you can get real results, especially with whatever the goals are.
Right.
Right. Okay.
And cardiorespiratory training is important.
Right.
Often people don't want to do it.
Right.
They just want to go and lift weights,
Right, right.
or just do stretching, or do yoga, or push-ups, or machine.
Right.
But cardiorespiratory training is very important.
Right.
And
Why is that? Maybe you can explain.
well, cardiorespiratory training is like what we had talked about last week, is that it actually works the heart and your respiration.
Okay.
And it's good to incorporate with your strength training.
Okay.
And it depends on your goal. Now, people who want to lose weight,
Right.
it's important to start with cardiorespiratory training,
Right.
using HIIT, or just doing a lot of it and
Okay.
then doing your strength training.
Right.
But if their focus as a client is bodybuilding,
Right.
trying to build muscle, or leaving the weight where it is and just trying to shape the body, or even trying to gain weight,
Right.
then cardiorespiratory training generally is done after you strength training.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
it should
Great
be
tip.
incorporated, of
Great
course.
tip. Okay. Perfect. So again, if you ever have any questions, anything related to health, fitness, technology, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach us at info@peel.health. And you can also reach us out with the numbers that we have, as well through our website. So for this week's episode, what we want to talk about is students, and we want to talk about exercise, and we want to talk about we'll kind of touch really briefly on some of the different levels of students. So whether they're actually there for competing in some kind of an athletic program, just down to the average student who may not necessarily be athletic, but they want to stay in shape and
Sure.
kind of keep fit. And we know that exercise helps promote blood flow, which in turn just makes us sharper all around.
Yes.
And so definitely we want to be including fitness into our study schedule, just to make us just to get promote the blood flow, and really to get us focused on studying. And so once our brain is being fed with more blood, we know that we're going to be able to perform better.
Right. A leading amount of studies have showed that fitness does not, increase your drive, your energy, but improves cognition, which
Right.
is our thought processing.
Perfect. All right, so let's start maybe with the average student who's not in an athletic program. What are maybe some steps, some things that they can incorporate on a weekly basis? So we know that they might be traveling to school. They might either by bus or by car, by vehicle. They may not necessarily be staying on campus. And so they have to take that into consideration. They have homework, plus then the actual school time itself, and maybe some of those projects and stuff kind of going on the side. So now the average student, what can they incorporate on a weekly basis that would really kind of optimize their fitness level?
Well, first of all, you have to look at what your goals are as a student pursuing fitness.
Right.
The main thing is to get out there and do it. Most campuses have fitness centers, gyms. PE is required no matter what you
Right.
do. When I was in university in the United States, pursuing my degrees, and actually I was an athlete as well.
Right.
We were required to take 2 courses in PE
Okay.
as somebody who's not an athlete.
Right.
I may have taken 20.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
but a lot of them were, sports training courses
Right.
that I had to do as an athlete.
Okay.
Summer sports, seasonal sports, and things like that. So you have to take the course, but you also have to look at when you want to train. As a student, when I was in university, I noticed a lot of my colleagues would like to train after class,
Okay.
once classes were done. So
Right.
mid-afternoon to late afternoon, before dinner, sometimes even after dinner and late night.
Okay.
It's rare that you see students that wanted to train early in the morning,
Right. Okay.
because maybe their focus was just trying to wake up
Right.
or studying or going to class,
Right.
and
Okay.
fitness was put on the back burner.
Right.
So an important thing to do is scheduling
Okay.
your fitness,
Right.
and look at how many days you want and what your goals are. Now, if your goals are just general fitness, you can train every day as long as you do split workouts. But it's important to have a rest from weightlifting if you're
Right.
going to do that. Now, if you want to bodybuild as a college level student, as a university age student, then you should shoot for 5 days of training
Okay.
in a week.
Right. Now, is that 5 consecutive?
No.
Okay.
I would recommend a split workout where you take off days within the 7 days. So
Okay.
2 days would be on.
Right.
You would train, let's say Monday, Tuesday, and then take Wednesday off.
Right.
And again, go back to the gym on Thursday, and then take Friday off, and
Right.
then go back and do Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
So it'd be 2 days on, 1 day off, 1 day on, 1 day off. That way you
Right.
get 5
Okay.
in.
Right.
If you're trying to bodybuild.
Right.
If
Okay.
you're just trying to do general fitness, maybe you want to do 6 days
Right.
and take 1 day off, maybe Sunday. So when you do that 5 day program that I'm talking about, your off days are going to vary because
Right.
2 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on. Every week it's going to be a different, off day. It's not going to be consistent.
Okay. Okay.
So activity scheduling,
Right.
scheduling not just meals and meal preps and training, but everything that goes into fitness, and that includes rest.
Right. Right. We talked about that last week as
Yes.
well, how important it is. So maybe you can suggest some of the most effective, maybe exercises for, a busy student who has very limited time, and they just want to kind of get in and out. Maybe they're going to devote like half an hour to an hour for workout. What are some of the things that they might do that might help them be the most effective in terms of getting fit and just overall fitness in general?
One of the things that they have to do is start the program.
Right.
The program being that you're going to go into the gym,
Right.
and that you're going to kick out an hour to 90 minutes of
Right.
training.
Right.
And that may include 30 minutes of cardiorespiratory training,
Right.
and then strength training. And then change it. You have to vary the program. After 3 weeks to 2 months, depending on your goals, you got to vary your fitness program.
Okay.
You can't stay at the same program because you get what's called a stagnancy.
Okay.
You get plateaus.
Right.
You may not be losing weight anymore, or you may not be gaining weight anymore. And a common thing when people start training, if they've never done training,
Right.
is they lose a drastic amount of weight in the beginning.
Right.
They're like, wow, that's great.
Right.
And then they just plateau. Well, that's because when we first start training, after not training at all,
Right. Right.
you lose a lot of water weight
Right.
through perspiration, through just training. Your muscles are getting stronger,
Right.
and they're getting more fibers. And then you may notice, well, how come I'm not, losing that weight that I did in the beginning?
Right.
So you got to vary the program.
Okay.
You got to do different things. You
Right.
got to change your cardiorespiratory training. Instead of doing the treadmill, go to the elliptical trainer, go to the step mill or step machine,
Right.
and just vary it. Go outside.
Okay.
Run outside. The weather's getting better.
That's
Go
right.
out there
That's
and
right.
run
Okay.
in the streets or on a track in the
Right.
park.
Okay. Perfect. So it's so what we're talking about is you want to set some goals.
Yes.
You want to set some kind of measurable results. You want to track what you're doing. Whatever the goal is, whether it's just to stay fit, whether it's to become a little bit more active, whether you're actually looking to put on weight or lose weight, whatever the scenario is, you want to be able to track it, and you want to be revisiting those goals, right, on a quarterly basis. When you see that you start to plateau, you don't see the same changes happening, and so then you're gonna revisit it and set some new goals, and then kind of address fitness and kind of take it from there. So that's the like the average student. So what about someone who's actually in the athletic program now at the university, college level, as a student, maybe even we can touch on high school students. Is there such a thing as overtraining? Because if they're in some kind of an athletic program, they're already going to be heavily training as it is, right? So maybe we can kind of briefly touch on some of the things, maybe do's and don'ts, maybe some signs of that they're in excessive training, and maybe some of the things that we can talk about that may help the body recover a little bit faster, maybe prevent that overtraining.
Yes. Now, overtraining is a big problem. Now, as an athlete, you're going to get trained by your coaches.
Right.
You're going to get trained by your program. There may be some times when you may be overtraining. Like as an athlete in university and college, we would have double days.
Right.
We would train before classes,
Right.
and we would train after classes.
Right. Okay.
That was generally before the season would start.
Right.
So this wasn't overtraining. Now the problem with overtraining is it builds lactic acid buildup.
Right.
Okay. And lactic acid buildup is not good for your muscles.
Right.
So for your
So maybe
overall.
before we go further, you can explain what lactic acid is for people that don't know.
Lactic acid is when there is too much acid that builds up in the bloodstream
Right.
from overtraining.
Okay.
Now the body utilizes oxygen to break down glucose
Right.
during exercise.
Okay.
So if you're overtraining, there may not be enough oxygen
Right.
to allow this to happen, and then lactate builds up in the bloodstream.
Right.
This causes nausea, cramping, sometimes vomiting,
Right.
in extreme cases. But in a mild form, it's not good for muscle building or
Right.
general overall fitness.
Okay.
So lactic acid buildup is something that you have to monitor. And there are some supplements that people say that you can take to prevent this, glutamine and
Right.
other types of amino acids.
Okay.
But the main thing is just to monitor your body. I
Right.
mean, if you're overtraining, then hold back.
Right. Is lactic acid that feeling of if we're doing a lot of running, then we can feel like the muscles seem really tight?
Yeah.
That's what lactic acid.
It
That's
can,
the feeling.
well,
One of
but the tightness might be a good tightness.
Right. Okay.
Just like soreness.
Right.
When we lift weights or when we train and then we're sore, there's two types of main soreness. There's a good soreness, which we call DOMS
Right.
in fitness, and DOMS
Okay.
is abbreviation for delayed onset of muscle soreness. This is the good soreness. This is the
Right.
one when you wake up the next day and you feel kind of sore because I really hit this muscle group well, or
Right, right.
or I ran real good in the park and my calves are feeling like this.
Right.
And then there's the immediate one where you can sustain injury.
Right.
That's a bad type of soreness.
Okay.
So you have to monitor,
Okay.
your threshold.
Right. Perfect. And so going hand in hand with the fitness is obviously our health side and our nutrition. And, our brothers and sisters that are in school, sometimes, they may have meal cards, meal plans. So they may not have the best, healthiest choices sometimes, right? Sometimes it's just a matter of time. Maybe you can suggest some things that, these students can do that can really help them put in the nutrition that the body requires so that they can really achieve optimal fitness level as well as just optimal mental state for their studies.
Well, food is important.
Right.
Everybody needs it.
Right.
But you have to watch what you eat.
Right.
As a student, you may be, inclined to go to the food court on campus.
Right. Right.
Or go in the cafeteria and eat the wrong kinds of foods, right? So you got to watch what you eat. You can cheat. I recommend cheating once a week.
Right.
As a student, if you're eating Taco Bell and Burger King almost every day, then,
Right.
It's not a good thing, right?
Definitely.
Right.
We're talking about high salts, high fats. And all
High
kinds of
salts, high
fats.
fat, all sorts of things that you should, carbohydrates that you're not supposed to be, refined sugars, everything.
Right.
So you got to do what's called meal prep.
Right.
And we talked about this last week. Prepare 2-3 days of meals in advance.
Right.
Not every single meal, but you have something on deck that you can have.
Right.
Whether you're a vegetarian or non-vegetarian,
Right.
prepare your meals that are healthy in nature and provide you with the macronutrients,
Right.
which are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats.
Right. Perfect. And so with the meal plan, obviously, one of the best rules to live by is if you don't bring that food into your house, into your vicinity, you're less likely to cheat.
Yes.
So, meaning to say, if you don't want to be drinking pop, don't bring it home. Then you won't
Right.
touch it. Then you'll
Right.
have other options.
Right.
So definitely meal planning, prepping is a huge step, especially for someone who wants to, perform at a high level, whether it's just studying or whether it's actually fitness. Maybe we can touch about some of the different, for example, so let's say someone is a vegetarian, and so now they're kind of really restricted to the vegetarian diet, but maybe, they don't have the options when they go to school. I know, again, we come back to meal prep and meal plan. Maybe we can touch on that in terms of vegetarian diet and maybe some things that you might be missing as a vegetarian diet that you need to supplement in some other way.
Sure. Well, vegetarian diet. My mother's a vegetarian, so I actually have a large family of vegetarians. I'm not a vegetarian myself.
Right.
I've had some times in my life that I was, but vegetarians got to watch, their protein intake, iron, and things of that nature.
Okay.
So everybody has to eat vegetables.
Right.
Everybody's got to eat vegetables, whether they're raw or cooked. So vegetarians, because if they're training, they need that protein, the lentils.
Right.
Dairy if they are a lacto-ovo vegetarian, because there's
Right.
different ones. There's vegan, of course, and they wouldn't touch, but beans, whole grains,
Right.
nuts,
Okay.
like almonds, cashews,
Right.
peanuts,
Macadamia,
nuts,
pumpkin, and even the seeds, like pumpkin seeds.
There's
any of
different
those.
seeds that then give them protein that they can do. It's very important to have some protein after you lift weights.
Okay.
We talked about this, I believe, at
window.
last year's expo,
Right.
at last year's Peel Healthy Lifestyle show, that when we train, we have something that's a phenomenon called the anabolic window.
Okay.
So right after you lift weights, a half hour into after you're finished, your muscles can take in more protein than any other time other than
Right.
sleep.
Okay.
So it's important right after you train to take a protein.
Okay.
And if
Okay.
you're vegetarian, then maybe
Right.
some type of lentil,
Okay.
bean, dairy, whatever it is. If
Right.
if you don't want to do protein shakes.
Right. Okay. So as we start to wrap up, is there anything that you want to add when it comes to students and exercising? Anything on the topic that we may not have touched on?
Well, the main thing is don't give up. Get started and continue and monitor, as we had talked, your fitness gains and change your goals, because you may reach certain goals and then you may feel that that you have plateaued. So always evolve the training. It's a
Okay.
process. It's a lifelong process.
It's a lifelong process. That's
You
right.
don't just
It's
stop.
a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle. It's a way of living. It's not an activity. It's not an exercise.
Right.
It's something just like we breathe and eat, we got to exercise.
Definitely. And it's, many people are under the misconception that, they're going to change, do a different diet and they're going to try this and try that. But, a diet by definition and inherently is going to fail because it's always short term.
Yes.
By definition, it's a short term.
And it's influenced by fads.
Right.
There's so many fad diets right now.
That's right.
This diet, that diet,
That's right. And that's right. And so when we're looking at really changing, we're actually talking about a lifestyle change. And that's going to be long term, it's going to be sustained, and it's going to be done in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
And the lifestyle we're talking about is your diet plus the fitness.
Yes.
And that's what's going to help with a healthy lifestyle. And we know that studies show that, optimal nutrition, having better nutrition, as well as increasing your fitness, you have less chances of getting diseases and different symptoms that people would normally have. So we are going to be wrapping up. So we want to just kind of touch base and let you know again the Peel Healthy Lifestyles Show, which is going to be happening on June 1st at Turner Fenton Secondary School, which is at Kennedy and Steeles here in Brampton. Please go to our website www.peel.health to get more information. If you want to send us an email, you can send that to us as well at info@peel.health. And feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. We can definitely get those answers to you. As well as if we get questions, we can always bring them and talk about them on the next episode, just so everyone can get the benefit of some of those questions. Sometimes, we don't want to reach out, but other people may reach out and, you may have a similar kind of question that we can answer for you. As we wrap up, again, this is the Peel Healthy Lifestyles Show where we focus on health, fitness, and technology. My name is Yadevinder, and this is...
I'm Dr. Taj Bedi, and I would just like to emphasize again as co-director of this event that this may be called Peel Healthy Lifestyle Show, but it's for everybody, no matter where you are in this world. I invite you to come, whether you live in the greater Toronto area or across Canada, the United States, or anywhere in the world for that matter. If you are here in the area, to come on June 1st and attend, because it's not just for Peel residents, it's for everybody.
That's right. Perfect. So we want to thank you for watching this week's episode of Peel Healthy Lifestyles. Stay tuned on our YouTube channel to see the bonus footage. Other than that, we want to say thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
In good health.
In good health.
That sports psychology has a big part in this, and when I say that, I mean that you got to evaluate your consequences.
Okay.
Consequential awareness. What if I don't train?
Right.
What if I don't take care of what I'm putting in my body? What if I don't care about how many minutes I do of training, what I do if I don't exercise?
Right.
What is going to be the risk to my health?
Right.
If you can put that in your mindset, then you'll be more likely to train.
Okay.
If you don't like the way you look, or if there's something that you want to change about yourself, do something about it.
Right. Okay. Why psychologically, or I guess mentally, when we may start something. So now, okay, so we got over that hump. We're like, okay, I've decided now I don't want to be overweight. I want to be healthier. I want to be around for my grandkids, or I want to be able to, go to the park with my children, my grandkids, and not be out of breath.
Right.
Keep up with them. So now that we've started that, and now we've said, okay, we've accepted, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Then I think sometimes the next pitfall is where people will fall off. And why is it that people fall off? What's happening mentally? What's going on?
Generally, professionally, what I see is a lack of motivation.
Okay.
Motivation subsides sometimes with people. And it may be due to events that are going on in people's lives. It may be due to things, that they're going through personally,
Okay.
professionally,
Right.
maybe physically.
Right.
So they have to see what's going on with me.
Right.
Why am I not wanting to go to the gym now?
Okay.
There's days that I don't feel like going.
Right. Right.
We all go through this.
Right.
I didn't feel like doing the adaptive motion trainer this morning, but
Okay. Right.
I did it, right?
Right.
I did that art trainer because I got my own goals.
Right.
So motivation is the key.
Okay.
It's what's going to drive you to continue, to start, to not quit.
Right. Right.
Sometimes you need motivation from an external source.
External source, right?
You
Okay.
may need friends,
Training
family,
buddy or whatever.
training buddy,
Right.
or a personal trainer, whatever it is.
Right. Okay.
So there's intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic is that I have it.
Right.
I don't need anybody to tell me to push another repetition.
Right.
To do another set.
Right.
To go to the gym this morning or tonight or to go tomorrow.
Okay.
To follow this nutrition program. That's
Right.
my intrinsic motivation.
Okay.
Extrinsic is, well, I don't have it. What should I do? Well, get a fitness trainer, get a
Right.
personal trainer,
Right.
get a training buddy, like you said.
Right. Okay.
Get family members, friends, or whatever it is.
Right.
Do some type of self-evaluation, self-affirmation.
Right.
You
Sounds
know?
like there's a lot of self-awareness that has to happen on a daily, continual basis.
Yeah.
Where you're doing like self-checks.
Yes.
This is what it's kind of sounds like as you're describing this, where it's really being in touch with ourselves and paying attention to what we're doing. Are we getting enough rest? Are we getting the right food and nutrition? Because a lot of times people don't realize the connection to with food and how you feel. And a lot of times we may load up on carbs and then we get tired and we go to sleep and we think that's normal. But when I work with families, the biggest thing that I always tell them is, how do you feel? And that's a direct result of your last meal.
Yeah.
And so if you feel really tired and lethargic, what did you eat in your last meal?
Right.
And then if you don't like the results that you're getting, then you got to change it, right? I mean, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over
And expect the same result.
Right. And so what we want to do is, if you're feeling lethargic after certain foods and certain meals, maybe you need to look at what you're actually putting in into your body, through your mouth, because that's one of the most important parts. That's our fuel.
Right.
And so you're not going to put diesel fuel into an unleaded vehicle,
Right.
and
ruin this engine.
and ruin the engine.
Right.
And so it's the same thing. This is our temple, and we want to make sure that we hydrate it. We want to give it nutrition so that it performs at its optimal peak performing level, like whatever those personal goals are with the self-awareness. Maybe you can suggest some things that people can do, like as maybe some self-awareness check-ins to kind of on a daily basis, like whenever, like it's typically self-awareness is, when you come across it and you think about where you're at. So maybe you can suggest some things that really help to bring a person a little bit more awareness and more self-awareness, like meditating yoga or something that help to kind of really bring that mind, body, soul together to really focus on the present, which is what we're really getting towards. Is you're someone who is self-aware is really, it's about being present.
Right.
Because then you're able to look at your body, where am I at as my state right now?
Right.
Whether it's emotionally, mentally, whatever it is. Maybe you can suggest some things that really help.
You touched on a good one. Meditation
Right.
causes a lot of self-awareness.
Okay.
And I also like to do what's called Pranayama Yoga.
Okay.
Pranayama Yoga is the breathing yoga, and the focus is on breath. There are some asanas that are involved, because Hatha Yoga is the traditional yoga that
Right.
I was geared to do all my life. But
Okay.
Hatha Yoga involves what we call postures, asanas,
Right.
and pranayama, which is the breathing. I think the breathing is very important,
Right.
and it really helps people get in tune
Right.
with themselves, with the awareness, with the goals and the motivation, the drive.
Right.
Because prana is what it says. Prana is life force, energy,
Right.
and we get that from from within,
Right.
and we use breath to create that energy,
Right.
to create that synergy. Meditation, of course, there's different forms.
Okay.
And often people will say, well, meditation, yoga, this might have a religious context or
Right.
connection. Well, provided, yeah, yoga did come out, thousands of years ago out of the Yoga Sutras in Hinduism. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are a Hindu or a Sikh
Right.
if you want to do yoga. I've taught yoga to all different types of people.
Right.
Right. Muslim, Jewish,
Right.
agnostic, atheist.
Right. Right.
It doesn't matter. It's a practice, and it will help you. So
Definitely. And ultimately, we're talking about stretching.
yes.
That's, I mean, like at its bare root form, yoga is really about stretching and really feeling what the body's doing. Because yoga is meant to be gentle. You're gently easing into postures. You're gently easing your body into positions that you would normally not be in, but they're beneficial in terms of, if you have lower back pain, or if you have back issues or leg issues, knee issues, whatever the scenario might be. Yoga is about really helping to get the body into a more nimble and more supple forms of positions that really help to like lubricate the joints, really is what it's getting towards.
Right.
It's completely opposite to like weightlifting, where you're just using your own body weight and
Right.
you're really easing into positions. And
Right.
I mean, definitely you can kind of go a little bit more where people are helping you get into, getting into positions like, and so that will really help, especially if you're trying to get more flexibility. But I mean, one of the biggest points of yoga is that you're not trying to push yourself into positions. It's you just let the body do what it can do,
Right.
and then you try to match the breathing with the actual positions.
Yes.
And that's what helps to kind of create that mind-body awareness.
Right, and a
Right.
balance.
Right.
A balance
Right.
within yourself.
Definitely. And I think it's one of the only times where someone, on the average person, is going to really focus on breathing. And, the average person, again, is not really breathing or focused on breathing. It's really short, like just the upper part of the lungs where they're filling in. So there's no real deep breaths happening.
Shallow breath.
It's all shallow breathing. And that's one of the biggest hindrances to being able to perform at any level, whether it's mentally or physically. Right?
Right.
Anything else you want to add with yoga, breathing, mindfulness?
No, just that there's different forms of yoga, and people always ask me, well, what should I do? Even though I do traditional hatha yoga, there's several forms out there. I mean, a big one right now is Bikram and heated yoga. People
Okay.
like to do,
Right.
Ashtanga, Iyengar,
Right.
Vinyasa, Kundalini. I mean,
Right.
the list goes on.
Right.
There's so many forms of yoga. Just see what suits you.
Right.
What
Right.
benefits you. There's one yoga doesn't mean the other yoga isn't as good.
Right.
So
Right.
just
right.
because I use traditional forms of yoga doesn't mean that that's the way to go.
Right.
Some people might like to go in a heated yoga room, putting the temperature up to 50 degrees,
Right, right.
and do yoga, right, in their bikini or in
That's
their
right.
underwear.
Right.
I mean, that's up to them.
Right.
You know.
That's right. And I think everyone is different.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, part of the whole healthy lifestyle is that self-awareness and that journey to find out what really works for you. And there's no cookie cutter approach. Just because it works for me, it may not necessarily work for you, and what works for you may not necessarily work for me. But it's about really trying. And, whatever you try it at least 2 or 3 times, just to see that, is this something that really works?
Yeah.
And you'll know right away whether it's working, whether it's not working.
Right.
And then you make those adjustments and you course correct and you just figure out what's working, so that you can have your optimal healthy lifestyle, like whatever that looks like for you, whatever
Right.
the goals are.
Yes.
Right. So as we start to wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add that we may not have touched on?
Well, holistic lifestyle, is that what it is, right?
Right.
You gotta, if you want to live a holistic lifestyle using yoga, supplementing, using natural remedies and things like that, evaluate it, see if
Right.
it works for you. You
Okay.
know, there is no cookie cutter approach to everything.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you may have to customize things.
Right.
You may have to see what works for you,
Okay.
what works for me,
Right.
what works for her or him,
Right.
and just check it out. You
That's
know,
right.
test it.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So we're going to wrap up this week's episode. Again, my name is Yadevinder, and
I am Dr. Taj Bedi. I'm a clinical psychologist and a certified personal fitness trainer in Brampton.